Test, test.
Janice, are we ready? Okay. Here we go. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Camden Maine Select Board meeting for October 3rd, 2023. We are on Spectrum Cable TV channel 1303. We are live streamed on YouTube, and you can also find us on Zoom. If you'd like to participate via Zoom, please raise your hand, and Audra will monitor that and let us know that somebody would like to speak. The first item on tonight's agenda is public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to speak on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we move on to agenda item number 2, which is approval of the board minutes for September 5th and September 19th, 2023. Let's start with September 5th. Board,
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0, motion carries. And the board minutes for September 19th.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda is select board reports. Chris, can you start us off?
I have nothing to report.
Sophie?
I can't remember. I think we had the library board meeting. Oh, no, we had a library board of trustees. That was really interesting. We talked about the Montgomery Dam gift. We talked about all the events that the library puts out and their fundraising efforts, which is going really well. And we talked about, I think that's it. They're the two main things that we talked about. And I'm sorry because I meant to give you more information because I got some information from Nikki, but I just didn't have time to prepare. So that'll be it for me.
Thank you, Sophie. Stephanie?
I attended the planning board workshop where they discussed short-term rentals. It was actually a really good discussion, a lot of in-depth chatting and talking about it. The one thing that I did come across with is I don't think they've asked multiple times for public input. They just haven't received any. So I kind of feel like, well, if there's any public input, this discussion must be moving forward happily. So that's a good thing. I'm also part of the Christmas by the Sea. It's not a select board thing, but I just an update on that. We did hear from Santa. We are on his list of visitations, and he sent his elves down and picked out our Christmas tree. So Christmas by the Sea is on for the first weekend in December, and it's a go. That's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephanie. I also watched the planning board meeting, and I think you did a good job of summarizing that. So that completes select board reports. Item 4 on the agenda tonight is the manager's report. Audra, do you have anything?
I do. So tomorrow will be the kickoff for the virtual public meeting for the Main Street Bridge project. So the way that MDOT does this now, and I've put up a little news post on the website and a link to it. If anyone from the town has comments on that project, you go to MDOT's website and you can enter in your comments in their virtual public meeting portal. So they're going to be opening that tomorrow, and it'll be closed on the 23rd of October. And so if you go to the homepage of the website under the news items, I have a news item that has the MDOT logo and the link to that. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the wastewater treatment plant redevelopment project. So originally, substantial completion for this project was scheduled for January of 2023. Substantial completion was achieved on May of 2023. Final completion was supposed to occur 60 days after this. However, we're currently working through the punch list items with the contractor, and we haven't signed off on final completion. So the majority of the outstanding items right now revolve around the SCADA system. So that's the control system for the plant. It's both the hardware and the software, and it controls, monitors, and analyzes all the different systems and data that have to do with the plant. So it's really important for the operation of the new facility. So the project lingering on is really sort of making it difficult to move forward with determining how much funding we're going to have left for some of these, additional projects that we talked about, because there is going to be significant funding available to do another project. But until the treatment plant is complete and we know exactly how much we have in remaining funding, we're really not in a position where, we can sort of come to you with the different options for projects and have a good discussion about what you might want to do. So I just wanted to bring that up because this has been lingering for some time. We've been going back and forth with the contractor, and I feel like we're kind of at a point where it's good for the board to have a general understanding of where we're at and, where we kind of want to wrap this up quickly. So the Siemens energy efficiency and building upgrades. So I've talked about this a little bit, but this is also one that I haven't given an update on recently. So the one outstanding item from that whole group of projects that were sort of bundled into one big project was redoing the roof to this building right here. And it sort of, what Siemens did when they designed this project is they get agreements with their subcontractors for different elements of that project. And one of them was with a roofing contractor, very specialized roofing contractor, because this is a slate roof and it's a historic building and it's on the register of historic buildings. So it's pretty specialized work. The local contractor who was scheduled to do that wasn't able to do it for a lot of different reasons. And, this was during sort of the COVID construction period when everyone was starting to see some of the consequences of that. And so prices escalated pretty significantly in that time period. However, as anybody who was at that town meeting at the Snow Bowl remembers, no change orders was very much promised as part of this. So we were pretty adamant with Siemens that they needed to make up the difference. So they're cutting us a check for I believe it's $82,700 to make up the difference. Part of that cost is hiring an external project manager, because I'm not sure how it works with their financing or how it works with their schedule and how they do jobs. They're not going to be project managing the roof, but they're giving us the funds to make up the difference, including hiring a project manager for this. So that was negotiated by Bill Kelly. They sent the documentation to be signed today. And so we've got the roofing contractor scheduled to come and do that work in the spring. So that project will finally be able to wrap up at in 2024. So spring going into summer. We just received the preliminary design report for the Rawson Avenue pedestrian bridge. So the engineer that we're working with, Chris Fournier from HEV Engineering, he will be attending an upcoming select board meeting to present the report. And this is really the point where the select board will need to make a decision on a bridge design and choosing what option we're going to move forward with to final design, so that we can get that ready for documents to go out to bid and we can move that project forward. I wanted to give a little bit of an update on the traffic calming program. So since the policy was approved by the select board, we received requests from 4 different streets. So in March of 2023, Belmont Avenue was the first street to put in a request. We also received requests from Hardin Avenue, on March 28th, C Street on June 28th, and then Lime Rock Avenue just recently on September 19th. So all of the requests, we talked a bit about having the majority of residents that live on that street, and we were pretty loose in how we define that, signing the petition to say that they wanted us to come and evaluate everything. And all 4 of those streets met that threshold. And so we started the initial data collection, and that was really deploying the traffic speed and volume counters. So we have data for all of them, and we'd like some additional data for some of the streets, those being Lime Rock and I think Belmont Avenue, to get not just summer data, but also data in the shoulder seasons to just understand what the traffic patterns and volumes are like during those times. It's becoming clear from some of the data that we're getting back that some of the issues may be seasonal concerns. There are some streets where it's clearly a traffic volume issue and not necessarily a traffic speed issue, but there are two where it's very clearly a speed issue. So and Lime Rock's a perfect example of that. So for those streets where there's currently a speed issue going on, we have some options for some temporary things that we can do to help, resolve those issues. And so we're going to be, looking at those options. A lot of it is like, the flashing signage telling you your speed and asking you to slow down, that kind of thing. But for, the ones where speed is certainly an issue, we're going to do a little bit more data collection and people going out there and kind of surveying, what's going on these streets, like where are people traveling to and from, where's the majority of the problem in which segment of the streets. So, that's some of the work that we're going to do with that. And there's different recommendations we're going to have based on what the problem actually is, because dealing with a speeding issue is different than dealing with a volume issue. So we'll be bringing that in front of you when we actually have, the information written up and we have some recommendations to present.
Absolutely.
Could we do something about the bottom of Bayview? And it might be a seasonal issue because coming down from Bayview, the cars are speeding.
Is this like when you're coming down from
the
upper-
Camden Harbor Inn?
Okay,
and you
yeah,
go towards town.
Yeah.
And the cars are speeding there because simply because of gravity, right? And it's mainly summer, but there's a lot of kids on bikes and things like that. And I've talked to shops, they've come to me saying, can you do something about it? And I'm not sure the residents who are very summer residents are aware of the traffic calming policy. So maybe it's incumbent upon us to take it up for next summer to put speed bumps for the summer or something, because they're just like barreling down. It's very narrow, yeah. Thank you.
Bottom of Bayview. All right. So, so anyway, that's kind of where we're at with those 4 projects, just, initial data collection. And our planner is working on doing the, sort of the deeper survey of the street where they talk about sort of the profile, what does it look like? Does it have sidewalks? Does it, all that kind of stuff. So for the broader pedestrian safety program. So this is just the outgrowth of, we had a meeting pre-pandemic and pre-new middle school with MDOT. We were part of the Heads Up program. And just to give a little background on that, MDOT chose 23 communities in the state of Maine where there was a high incident of contact between pedestrians and vehicles, and Camden was one of them, to do this Heads Up for Safety program that focused on, public education for both motorists and pedestrians, as well as some physical improvements to the infrastructure in these communities to try and, entice communities to prioritize pedestrian safety and make necessary improvements to make their roadways safer. And part of that, there was a meeting that was held in, I believe it was 2018, 2019. And residents were able to talk about some of the areas where they felt like there were problems and conflicts with pedestrians and motorists. And a lot of it focused around Elm Street and Main Street. So MDOT has come up with funding to fix a number of crosswalks on Elm Street. So it's advertised in their work plan. So there are multiple pedestrian crossings on Route 1. And it says beginning at Free Street and extending south. So they're going to put that out to bid in late 2024, and they're planning construction for 2025. So it's really the landing areas and the crosswalks themselves and sort of improving how that's configured. The kind of catch-22 with that is that a lot of the sidewalk in that area is the sidewalk that's in worse condition that we've talked about before. So, we might want to circle back to that whole conversation about fixing the Elm Street sidewalk and what that's going to entail. MDOT also participated in a meeting that our Public Works Department and the principal of the middle school and some other school district employees were at, where they were requesting additional rapid flashing beacons at certain intersections where the school's finding it's pretty dangerous for a lot of the kids that are walking to the middle school. And MDOT declined to participate in funding additional signalized crosswalks. But the Public Works Director did a bit of research and found a sort of an inexpensive alternative to, you probably noticed there's the one on Free Street, it's near the Free Street intersection going across Main Street, and the one near Mechanic Street to Knowlton Street. So those have all been pretty pricey, but there's newer models that are a little less elaborate that might be a good alternative. So we're going to do a little bit more research on that. And the principal of the middle school is going to request it as an item for us to consider including in the budget during the budget process. So that's pedestrian safety. For paid parking, Janice is helping me to organize a meeting for mid to late October with the working group that's helping me with the parking program. So we're going to be reviewing the financial information, getting some feedback from the parking enforcement officer who had quite an interesting summer, and also taking any, comments from community members who'd like to see adjustments made to the program so we can come back to the select board and talk about, what the changes will be and what the recommendations are for the upcoming year.
Do you have a date time for that yet?
We do not. We're still trying to get everyone together, but I'll send something out because I know that
Yeah.
a few of you would probably be interested in, watching or attending.
I've already sent my dates to Jen.
Perfect. So the Snow Bowl and the site law of development application process that we're going through. So I don't remember exactly what year it was. The select board decided with, I think it was 2020 when the Siemens energy efficiency upgrades were sort of kicking off out at the Snow Bowl, that kind of prompted the discussion about when the redevelopment happened, the town had to go through the process of amending our stormwater permit. And because so much of that site is developed now, it makes it pretty cumbersome anytime you want to do anything small out there because you need to go through a whole, amendment process with DEP. So we've talked for a while about it would be wise, given, what's planned for the future, what's happened in the past, to just sort of bite the bullet and go through the site law application process so that we have, a site law permit and we're able to, move forward with, a lot of the things like the Round the Mountain Trail and some of the mountain bike trails that have been discussed, eventually, hopefully the new lodge and other, longstanding plans for the Snow Bowl. So Gartley and Dorsey started working on that a few years back. It's been really difficult to make progress because of a lot of internal turnover in the DEP and some of the information that they're asking for that isn't really so relevant to this project, but it's part of their process. So getting them to, reconsider these things is difficult when you don't have a lot of people to ask these questions of, and they aren't necessarily assigned to this permit process. So we met recently we had a pre-application meeting with MDEP and Gartley and Dorsey. They're in the process of getting all of the information together to complete the application. So they're going to include existing and proposed mountain bike trails as part of this. And some of the details as to, what should be included, we're going to have to determine fairly shortly. And Jeremy, Beth, and I are working with a group of residents who were involved in either longstanding planning efforts out at the Snow Bowl, or, some of them are new people who've moved to town and they have, skills in this area and are able to help us with this. So they're helping us to try to, take stock of the existing plans that we have, go through them and figure out what's still relevant to where we're at today. What do we need to update so that we can get all that information together, have it ready for the site plan, and also so we can start having that conversation that we talked about moving certain initiatives out of the Snow Bowl forward.
Do you have Midcoast Heritage Trust in those conversations? Because and other.
Do you mean Coastal Mountain Land Trust?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. Yes, we do.
They were working on mountain bike trails, and we gave them.
Yeah, and the Round the Mountain Trail is like a real key, it's kind of like the spine for anything that potentially can happen out there. So anyway, there's some progress on there, which is great news because that's, been held up by forces outside of our control for a while. March, great. So if anybody didn't hear that, Jeremy was saying the plans to submit it to DEP in March. In terms of the Montgomery Dam repairs, we're currently waiting on Knowles Industrial Services to find out when they have time available in their schedule to install the gate. And just wanted to put this out there publicly that a few people have noticed that the water levels are quite low at the Montgomery Dam. A lot of that is from needing to restrict the flow of water from the East Dam to maintain lake levels. And so that's the, knock-on effect of that is that we've got low levels at the Montgomery Dam. Also the gate is leaking, so that certainly doesn't help. And when water levels were a bit higher, it was getting to that pipe, and it was also coming out of that pipe. But fear not, it's going to rain this weekend. Everything will rise up again. So for Pearl Street, I just wanted to give you an update on the timeline of remaining work. So I don't know if anybody's seen it lately, but they did the grading today, which is really exciting. It's smooth. It looks good. They're doing a really good job. So that happened this week. So October 12th to 17th, paving is scheduled, which is, I'm sure, very exciting for everybody who lives on Pearl Street. Right after that, so around, the 18th, the slip form curbing, the contractor that lays down that cement curbing is going to come and lay down the curbing. So from October 19th to the 27th, they'll be backfilling the sidewalk, compacting it, and then paving that. Very importantly, construction will not prevent the closure of Pearl Street for Halloween. So I thought that was really important to tell everyone. No big holes. No big holes. So those are my updates. Oh, and also, one thing that I think would help with the select board and definitely town staff, we get a lot of questions about, people who want to put landscaping in the right of way, or they have questions because the snowplow has kind of come through and torn up they feel like it's the edge of their lawn because it's, it's right next to the pavement. But when I look a little bit more in like our GIS database, I find it's actually the right of way. So just putting out information about what the right of way is, what its purpose is, and, that we really can't, it would be just so cost prohibitive if we went around and restored everybody's sort of landscaping in the right of the way to the standard that they would like us to. We can do basic things to make sure drainage is functioning and to, clean up sand so that it's not clogging up catch basins. But I'm going to put something out there sort of explaining the right of way and how you can find it, what it looks like, and, information on why we can't, do all the things that people would like us to do in there and that kind of thing. Because I think it would just be a helpful tool to just remind everybody about it. And this kind of goes along with a conversation about ditches getting filled and that kind of thing.
Along the thing of right away, any note, or maybe you can just restate for the Route 1 vegetation removal, what the dates are.
Oh, yes. I believe it was October 24th.
It's coming right up, if I recall.
Yes, I'm just going to double check because I think that I had the dates in my. So I'm just looking. I think it was starting November 1st. Yes, so November 1st is when the Springbrook Hill Bridge vegetation removal starts.
Audra, I have a couple of questions regarding traffic calming, and some residents have asked about having bushes cut that they feel like are preventing lines of sight on particular intersections. How is the town reacting to that? Are we just, if residents ask for bushes to cut, are we doing that?
Yeah,
Or-
we certainly for line of sight stuff, we can go ahead and cut bushes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think that safety trumps everything for those. And a couple of questions about the Siemens, or I guess one. Do we have any data? Is the Siemens going to present us any data on the efficiency of the project?
So they were holding off until the roof was complete, but we told them since that has nothing to do with the energy aspects of the project, they gave us their first report, which was during the construction period. And, I can share that with everyone. It's not very satisfying because they bundle the whole, like they consider everything they did at every building as part of the broader general project. So the data that they give back is aggregated across all the different elements of that project. So I think that, getting more fine-grained data in their first actual yearly report, not just the construction period report, but their first yearly report, we're going to have to ask them to split it out if we.
Because the library, thank you for pointing out, the library is interested.
Yeah, I sent.
Because they're keeping really good track.
Yeah,
Susan is great at keeping tabs, so she's curious to see how they measure that. So
yeah.
it would be good. Yeah.
So the contract was like kind of an aggregate thing. They were going to come up with some type of level of efficiency on an aggregate level, but yeah, they obviously have to do some type of a breakdown to create that aggregate. So if we could
Yeah.
get the entire data, that would be great.
Definitely, I'll ask them for that, for the first, like I said, first year report, because now the construction report is not very helpful. But I'll give it to everybody so you can see what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Audrey. Sophie?
There's one thing you missed in your manager's report. Just one. I want to thank Dave Saint for replanting the tree very quickly at Lake Beach. Because the whole neighborhood felt so bereaved of losing that 100-year-old oak. And it's super cool because the hatchery students are going to carve benches and picnic tables that will come back to Lake Beach, hopefully. So full circle. And it's
And I'd
Chief
like
Late's
to-
family also.
Yeah, I was going to say,
who
I'd like
has
to
helped
thank the Late
funding.
family.
Yeah, it was wonderful that they did that and that Dave Saint Laurent moved so quickly. I'm super glad.
Good, awesome. That's wonderful news. Okay. Anything else for Audra? Okay, item number 5 on tonight's agenda is consent agenda items. The consent agenda tonight is the confirmation of the designation of the Registrar of Voters Office hours for the upcoming November 7th, 2023 election. The confirmation of the town clerk's appointment of Peter Gross as election warden for the state general election to be held on November 7th. The counter signature of special meeting warrant for MSAD 28 budget referendum, the renewal applications for victular and or lodging licenses for A Little Dream, Camden Island, and Cuzzy's Restaurant, and approval of liquor license extension for Oyster Festival for Blue Baron and Salt Wharf Restaurants. Does anybody want to speak on the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, the consent agenda is adopted. Item 6 on tonight's agenda, public hearing for liquor licenses. Item 6A is an application of Anderson Inn at Quarry Hill for a renewal of a Class 1 restaurant liquor license to serve malt liquor and wine on premises. Board?
I didn't see anything missing from the application. I would make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0. Item 6B, application of Quarter Deck, doing business as Cuzzy's at 21 Bayview Street for a renewal of a Class A lounge liquor license to serve malt liquor, wine, and spirits on premises.
So I have a question on this one, because if I just refreshed the package, but there are 4 police reports. Is that correct? Is that at Cuzzy's?
So Randy's.
I'm sorry, I'm just reloading it, so I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, there were four, you're correct. There were four
There are
items.
4 items,
And it
and
also says no issues that basically, I think the word is probably concern, renewal.
I understand that, but my question is, what is management doing to minimize those numbers? Because for the 3 years I've been on the board, it's the first time I see that many. So we don't have anyone from Cousins here.
No,
tell us
no.
that.
But
And
Randy
Randy
wanted
says
to
it
make
doesn't-
a,
yeah.
yeah, he wanted to make a point of, he sent me a message saying that he has no issues with renewing Cuzzy's license.
Just would like to know.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Sure, I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0, motion carries. Application, item 6C, application of Cuzzies at 21 Bayview Street for renewal special amusement permit. Board, anything on this? Do we know what the special amusement is?
Karaoke,
Yeah.
pool.
Karaoke, open mic,
Yeah.
professional musicians.
Make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0, thank you. Item 6D, application of Casey Enterprises Incorporated doing business at Snow Dogs at 20 Barnestown Road for a renewal of a Class 1 restaurant liquor license to serve beer and wine on premises. Is this the Snowball?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0, the motion carries. Item 6E, application of Sea Dog Brew Pub Camden LLC, doing business as Sea Dog Brew Pub Camden at 1 Main Street for renewal of a restaurant, or renewal of a Class A restaurant lounge liquor license to serve beer, wine, and spirits on premises.
So the only thing that I ask about that is, I think still in their window, it says that you can like buy beer there and then take it off. I can't remember how it's worded. So
But-
this says on
Yeah.
premise. So my thought process is that something, is that sign okay? I can't remember exactly how it's worded. I should have taken a picture of it.
Yeah, it's,
We could have during
it was like
COVID,
the
right?
relaxing during the pandemic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I saw the on premise, I was just like, huh. So that's my only concern. I have no other concerns. It's just, I know that was a big,
So Jeremy, if you have to come up, please, just for the people who are watching on YouTube.
Lots of breweries.
Turn on your.
Lots of breweries do have growlers to go. They fill up growlers and you can take them to go. They're not to drink from here to there. That's just like you're going into the stop and go and picking up a 6-pack or something. It's the same
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I know they do that there as well.
I don't
So
know.
this is typical for other restaurants and typical for state of Maine in general?
It is it's very typical for most breweries do that. Brew pubs do that. I'm not sure of any that don't do that. Marshall Wharf does it in Belfast. Lake St. George does it out in Liberty. Tattooed Dad out in Jackson. They all
Sounds
do.
like you know your way around
I
the pub.
do. I do.
like.
You want me to keep
It
going?
doesn't occur to me.
I don't drink beer.
Can I get anything other than beer in those growlers?
No, definitely not.
Anyways, I'll make a motion that we approve.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0, motion carries. Thank you.
Can I, sorry, I'm backtracking us, I apologize, but, and it's maybe in the version of the package I have, but for Blue Baron's application, Randy did not check yes or no. Has this been corrected since?
I think it was just a mistake
Okay,
because there haven't been any Blue Baron incidents
right,
with the police. So, yeah.
but there's no yes or no.
Yeah, I think he just forgot to.
You just forgot, okay,
Yeah.
can you just make sure that we have a complete application?
Could we get him to do that after the fact, Audra?
Yes.
Just send it over to Randy, make sure we get the check on it. And if he doesn't check, yes, could you bring it to our attention?
Mhm. Yes.
Item 7 on tonight's agenda is approval of renewal agreements for snowball with snow dogs and side country sports. Beth, would you want to come up here and speak on this? Thank you.
While Beth's coming up, the only question that I would have on this, have we received any other requests to have anybody else that wants to do this out there? Okay, that's all.
So I'll just read the memorandum, Beth, since it's your memorandum, but I don't think you have it in front of you.
I don't have
Okay. So the purpose is the consideration of renewal of food concessions vendor Snow Dogs and the consideration of renewal of retail concessions vendor Side Country Sports. The background is the Snowball has worked with Jason Doppelt, who is, of course, Snow Dogs for the 2 previous winter seasons. Jason is easy to work with and does a great job serving the skiing public in Snowball. Nothing has changed in the agreement except for date changes. Side Country Sports has been operating at the Snowball since 2017. They're a great partner to have in the mountain and provide wonderful customer service. Nothing has changed in this agreement either except for dates. And your recommendation is to renew the concessions agreement with Snow Dogs and Side Country Sports for the 2023-2024 season.
It's great. I love what he does. I love the prices. I love the awesome. We're so lucky to have him up there. I think it's really cool. So I'm happy to make a motion that we approve, but we can further discuss.
I did have we can make a motion.
We can make a motion.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. What are the, this is a full year contract?
It's a full year contract, but really they're just, well, Side Country's there for 9 months and Jason's pretty much there till, I think the license or agreement says mid-April. He needs to be cleaned up and stuff.
Are these in the packet?
Yeah.
Okay, so it actually gives it doesn't actually give the days. When does the contract start and end?
The contracts, I believe, starts today
Okay,
after you guys sign it. And it ends mid-April.
April 30.
Yeah, April 15th.
okay, so it's not a full year contract.
Not for food.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and what are the amounts?
Jason, oh my gosh, you're asking me. I don't have it in front of me. It's in the packet.
It's okay, I can, yeah. What are, like,
4%.
you're renting the space to them?
I believe it's 4% for the food
Proposed revenue
service.
for the Snowball is 4% of
Yep.
total concession revenue.
Okay,
It's on page 5 of the
Yep.
license, of the agreement.
Also
Okay.
page 1, section 2.
we did have one resident who brought up a point, and I'm not sure, I haven't been over there to actually look, that the condition of the space that we rent to Side Country Sports is not pristine.
I went to school in that building. If everybody wants to know, it was at RES in the 80s.
Okay, so it's an old building.
It's an old building. It has been our race department kind of locker room since it moved there. I want to say early 2000.
Okay,
And then the other temporary building, of course, has the rental shop and the ticketing, and that I believe is heading to the same age.
okay. Any concerns there on your part?
We did some work on them both this summer. We rebuilt the ceilings in both, and we've patched the roofs. And Side Country was happy with the work that we did to their ceiling. So, and their contract is $1,000 monthly while they're there.
So I do see in the concession agreement that it would be starting on December 1st.
Okay.
Is that adequate?
Oh, yeah, that gives them plenty of time.
Okay.
Yep.
I just didn't want it to be too late.
Yep, no, it's fine.
And then the dates are April 15th for, it looks like, the food portion, and then April 30th,
For cleanup.
food and
For cleanup.
beverage.
So on page 2, number 7, It does say December 1 through April 30th for food services at the Snow Bowl.
Because one says, yeah. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure that December 1st was an adequate
Yep.
start date. You didn't need it to be changed.
Absolutely.
If you thought it was going to be tomorrow or tonight, it's.
All right, yeah, no,
Okay.
the contract's fine with the dates.
All right.
So I have a motion to approve. It needs seconding if we care to.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Well, we have Beth here. When are the passes going on sale?
They went on sale September 1st. And it's right now, it's trending to be pretty much exact as to last year's.
And Charlie's Ride?
Chairlift rides are Sundays in October, 10 to 2 on Sundays. And we're going to have the pizza oven there as well. So the patrol's going to run the pizza and make a few dollars for their funding needs. So,
Awesome. Thank you,
yeah,
Beth.
welcome.
Tom, I would like to make a request that we switch the next two and make B as A and A as B, so that we have Jeremy here for the redevelopment of the landing. If everybody, do you want a motion? to do
Yes,
that?
a motion.
I'll make a motion that we, at this time here, the planning, how was it worded?
Public landing redevelopment.
As item A.
It is.
It's not. Right now it's item B, public landing redevelopment, is at least on my.
And then the personnel is A. So I'm asking that we switch it. I need a second.
I'll second. But I would point out that usually, I mean, traditionally, our meetings should start by approving the agenda. We'd never do it because it's quite consensual. But if we have changes to the agenda, we should do them at the beginning of the meeting.
We forgot.
Yeah. But that's,
Thank you. Good point, Sophie. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0. Okay, so the next item on tonight's agenda for discussion is the public landing redevelopment. Jeremy, could you come up and give us some background?
Thank you. Appreciate that. This is really exciting, actually. When I first got hired here, almost 6 years ago now, it's flying by. One of the first things that I was kind of tasked with was trying to figure out how to redo the public landing and how to bring that to fruition. And the town started talking about redoing the public landing actually back in 2012. It was probably done before that, but the downtown master plan referenced the need to redevelop the public landing. And then in 2013, the town, using a shore and harbor planning grant from the Department of Marine Resources at the state, hired T.Y. Lin to do a public landing, just a whole process to come up with drawings and schematics on what the town wanted the public landing to be. They did that. There was at least 4 very well-attended workshops by lots of people in town. And T.Y. Lin did a pretty good job managing through those. And I wasn't here then, but reviewing the landing and the working notes and all that. So then since then, that document's been sitting on a bookshelf. And I think the select board has kind of challenged staff in the past about all these reports that get done and developed and plans that get done, and they end up sitting on a shelf and nothing ever happens to them. So this is great. And then in 2020, the state of Maine Department of Marine Resources again did a project called the Penobscot Bay Resiliency Project, where they looked at, I think it was 9 towns, public landings and public infrastructure in 9 towns in Penobscot Bay. Camden was one of them. They hired the Wood Group, a big environmental consulting firm. They looked at all of these towns. They met with myself here, Steve Pixley. We looked at all of the infrastructure at the public landing. They did a pretty good, I think it was, to be honest, like a 30,000-foot view of what needed to be done and addressed to make sure that the public landing was resilient to storm surge and sea level rise. And I think everyone knows, we repeatedly have to go to the public landing and do work after storm events. And last December's storm event was particularly devastating to the landing. And so with that in mind, I decided that I would submit grant applications to the State Shore and Harbor Planning Grant Program again, which was the same grant program that funded the T.Y. Lin report. And the governor's GOPIFs, Governor's Office of Policy, Innovation, and the Future, their Climate Resilience Partnership, which is the town is a member of. And the town has taken advantage. They've had 3 funding rounds now. And the town of Camden has actually been awarded grants in all 3 funding rounds. The first round was, we were actually a kind of a go-between pass-through to the school department for the electric school bus. So that got funded through that program. And then we got funded for an electric vehicle for the code office. And then I submitted a grant proposal for $50,000 and $10,000 from Shore and Harbor. So we got $60,000 from the state, just awarded last Friday. It was the press release. And it's going to enable us to put out an RFP to hire consultants to prepare design plans and construction documents so that we have a shovel-ready public landing project. It's really, really exciting, and it's going to happen within the next, it's all moving forward rapidly. The RFP would go out in November and be out for, I don't remember how many days, but it'll be out for, probably 30 days to 60 days. And then we'll bring those consultants in that submit, and we'll sit down with them and have conversation. They'll take all the existing reports that we have, all the existing data we have, and give us, some construction documents. That said, this is a perfect timing to bring in your whole desire to have more vendors and more opportunities and changes of use down at the public landing. If you look at the T.Y. Lin report, there's all 3 of those reports. It kind of came up with 3 different scenarios, schematic drawings on what the public landing could look like. And all 3 had a vendor area kind of tucked in where Harbor Dogs is now. And that would be for multiple vendors. So we're going to definitely include that in the RFP, that we want to make sure that there's some sort of location for those vendors. And I will say just on that, in that realm, the City of Bangor, I got today their whole process on, you've been asking for it, and how we can kind of have a big policy, like a formal policy, formal program or application process for vendors on the waterfront. And I just got that today, how they did theirs. So I'll be working on that a little bit and bring that back to you folks. And we'll include that as part of the RFP that goes out to consultants. This program, this project will have at least 2 public meetings, one on the front end to meet with the public, kind of go over, get public input. But really, we want to focus the project on moving it forward. We really don't want to, I didn't build into the grant more, 4 or 5 more public workshops on what we want the landing to look like, because that's been done. So we're going to use those existing reports and move that forward. So it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of money out there now for infrastructure projects, resilience infrastructure project in particular, but we can't apply for any of that funding right now because we don't have a plan. We don't have construction drawings it's not shovel ready. And so the intent is to have a shovel ready project come, I think it'll be done by, the final project should be done by June of this coming year. So we'll have design drawings done and be able to go out to bid at some point. We obviously have to look for funding, but that's the plan. So I'm really excited. It's been a long time coming for the town. It's 10 years since the T.Y. Lin report's been done, and we haven't done anything. And there's been lots of reports saying, do something. And now we've got the opportunity. I will say the Shore and Harbor Planning Grant is very competitive. It's not a huge amount of money, but they only gave funds to 7 towns in the entire state. Camden was one of them. The Climate Action Grant, 78 towns applied for like $3.8 million worth of funding total, and they awarded 48 communities funding of $2.5 million total. So again, Camden was included in that 48. So pretty fortunate. I think it shows to me, it demonstrates that the state understands that we're serious about addressing these issues and making sure our infrastructure is resilient, and that they, support our work that we're doing. So I'm really psyched about it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. The memo was kind of straightforward and simple. Go ahead.
Before questions, Audrey,
Sure.
Is there any possibility we could get the TY Lynn reports up on the screen? The link.
Yeah, I noticed that too. The
Mine
link
is-
went
isn't
nowhere.
working.
It didn't-
Oh, the link in the packet didn't
It's
work?
not working. It would be really nice, I think, for us
found it.
and.
I found it on the website though. I just didn't, the link didn't work.
I might. Just one moment. Oh, right, okay. I forgot about that, Juniper.
Okay, go ahead for questions. And
Sure.
Hopefully
Sure.
they'll come up. Sophie?
So I'm super excited. Thank you, Jeremy, for staying on top of this. I'm just wondering how we can articulate the public lending policy that we, at the select board, we want to have with your plan, because the timing is perfect.
It is.
Because we've all been wanting to talk about having a public policy for the lending and space usage, things like that. So maybe, I don't know how
My
to.
hope is to try to, within the next month of have something to you guys, like either a draft policy in place, because we got to get this RFP out there.
Right.
But all three of those plans that are in the TY Lynn report do have location for vendors.
Right.
So I think we'll stick with those locations generally.
But how do we make sure that we give you comments, or that we're not holding up the process, basically?
I understand, and I'll get something
It's
to
on,
you.
it's on us more than on you.
I'll get something to you ASAP. I know Jody up in the clerk's office, not Jody Hansen. I forget the other Jody's last name.
Richards.
She's been looking at other communities, and as have I. So she and I are going to meet actually this week and talk about what we've gathered and kind of put it together so that we can bring you something. I think the Bangor model is a good one. There's policy involved, and then it comes up with just how they came to it. So I think it's a good one. And that's at the waterfront in Bangor where the concert venue is. I will say, in talking with them, it appears that the food trucks model is changing some, and that food trucks are generally trying to be event-based rather than location-based now. They're just going from event to event to event rather than setting up at one location and sitting there all year. They've seen up in Bangor, they've seen a decline in food vendors, food trucks at that location because they've all just said, we can't do it because we're doing events all the time. So
Yes, maybe a little workshop. I know I hate.
here's these are the master plans. There were 3 of them that were designed.
See the difference?
Not much.
I remember that. It's all coming back to me now.
Space in the middle.
I mean, this is the location that they were talking for.
Jeremy.
Can you grab the
Jeremy,
mic?
can you bring your microphone with you? Sure. Thank you.
Or take mine.
This location here where Harbor Dogs is, this is obviously the restroom facility and part wastewater building. This is the location, Harbor Dogs, this is the location where that they had envisioned and again, it went through 4 or 5 public workshops that vendors would be in this location here.
Is that a walkway down the middle? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's kind of just the focus, the line of sight down, from Commercial Street down.
How would any of these change with the location of the parking meter establishments that we have? Because those post-date these plans, I suspect.
Yeah, I mean,
The kiosk.
we've got a right there's a kiosk here, and then there's a kiosk in the island, right?
Right.
Those can be relocated because those are solar powered. Those can be relocated. I mean, this is going to be a significant project. There's going to be a lot of digging here. There's a lot of infrastructure underground, so moving those pedestals is not going to be a challenge.
What was the general public sense when this originally came out? Was this a lot of interest, some interest, no interest?
Oh, I think at the time, if you read the TY Lynn report, I think it was lots of interest. Lots of people were psyched about it, and they came up with these three
Okay.
versions. There were not one of these was picked as the one to do. They came up with the three. And from my perspective, that's going to, how I'd like to envision this is that I want to give the consultants freedom to, think outside the box, but kind of base their decisions based on this. Certainly we'll take, obviously, what you folks have to say on it, but I don't want to really hem the
But
consultants into a corner.
So how many parking spots do we have now, and what does that go to in the end? And which one of the three is your preferred one, if you have a preference? I'm curious.
I don't really have a preference, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm more for green space, to be honest. I think
Okay.
the public landing, having it be a sea of pavement is not the most aesthetically pleasing thing. I know parking is a commodity that we need, but I think balancing parking, open space, and the other uses that we can have down there, I think is critically
I
important.
guess that drawing also predates the Sea Aquarium, where there's a few parking spots that are.
Yeah, I
there
mean, I
because
think
the
all of
apartment-
that stuff's going to have to be,
We saw.
it's going to be I think everything's going to have to be new, right?
Okay.
Can we see the other, just hold on the other ones there for a moment, Audra? I like seeing green.
Yeah.
Like I've always said, I think that the best use of our most valuable real estate is not parking.
I would agree with you. And visually, this is pretty slick. If you're walking down the sidewalk down Commercial, and this is the access point, you're going to be walking down. You're primarily going to be seeing green space as you walk down. But obviously, we got to balance the desires and needs and wants of the town, and parking is certainly a desire that we have sufficient parking.
It's
But
parking, but the parking also provides accessibility. The other day I was down eating lunch down there in the parking lot, in the nice motorcycle space down there.
Yeah.
Right in the center. And there's a lot more people in the area where you can drive your car to, compared to if you look across to the green lawn on the other side. There's a lot more people sitting at the benches at the harbor. And
Mhm.
to some of it, that's accessibility. And so,
Right, right,
I
for
imagine
sure.
this tried to keep a balance of accessibility for fishermen, maybe. I know we don't have that many probably, but
Yeah, I mean,
in other boat, day sailor boat,
Yeah.
support traffic.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think over in Harbor Park, you get there either by the sidewalk up off of, Main Street, or you get there from Atlantic Avenue. And so either where you're going or you don't. I think people are drawn to the water, and they know where the public landing is.
And can we see the third one as well, Audra? Thank you. Oh.
And I will say, I'm not a fan of this one.
Okay.
I'm just,
That's closer to what we have today.
right. Yeah.
But it removed the parking on the right.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, it went from green on both sides to green on one side with some sails kind of, designs, structures. But I think the sails would take away from the visual aspect you get of seeing, to the water. But that's my.
What are the sails?
Yeah, one's called the sails. In the report, we can send you a link to the report and you could read it. But they call one the sails and one is a boardwalk. The sails, they have some structures that are it's kind of a environmental art, if you will. It's a structure, sculpture kind of thing. Yeah.
Cool.
Board, anything else? Any questions for Jeremy or comments on the?
So
Go and do it, Jeremy.
run over me one more time. So what's the next step is to do what?
The next step, I think, for you folks is probably to get you a policy that you can agree to on vendors and how you want that to look like, or what you want to, even, it doesn't have to be the full policy. It's about location and size for how many vendors do you think we want down there? I mean, all three reports have them in that one area. But I think we need to make sure that works with what you guys are thinking. My gut says is 5 is probably the max that the public landing could handle in that location anyway. I haven't measured it off. These aren't scaled drawings. It's hard to do that without getting out there and actually doing it. Go ahead.
Would we have to reword how our licensing would go for them to be just at the landing?
What are you referring to?
The hawkers and peddlers license right now,
Yeah.
we awarded one to.
You awarded one to
Courtney.
Mm-hmm.
Sueforth for Pop Camden, or I forget what she
Right.
calls it. There's some, I think there was some talk around town that the hawking and peddling license that you granted gave her kind of carte blanche ability to go wherever she wanted to in town. That's not accurate. So when you approved that hawking and peddling license, it was for the location at the public landing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
That
we
is-
wouldn't. Okay,
That's true. And I will say all of the leases or licenses that we have, I mean, we've got the
There-
agreement for the aquarium, we got Harbor Dogs, and we have Courtney. Those are all going to have to be tweaked when this project moves
Yeah.
forward. I mean, there's no question that those are going to have to be addressed.
would you suggest that they be very specific location oriented, as far as if we said 5 spaces down there, you're in the one on the outside?
Absolutely. We need to,
Okay,
yeah, you
Very
need, in
specific.
order to do it, you have to have kind of a meets and bounds on what that license is for. I mean, we ran into that when Harbor Dogs came back.
right.
Like, are they bigger than what was there? I mean,
That's my point on
we
asking
need-
that question.
we need to have locations delineated for them, and it's part of their license agreement that this is where you're going to go.
And aesthetics as well.
Yep.
Right. And also a fee structure. so that
Absolutely.
It's, they do compete with the folks with brick and mortar stores that pay a lot higher taxes. To what level does it compete? And should they pay a decent fee, to
Yeah.
run a business?
Yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. The fees are going to be a part of a policy. I think on the front end really is location, is how many you're looking at and where do you think you want them. And I can come up with the size that an average vendor needs, and we can kind of fit that
Right.
using blocks onto a plan and, go from there.
Would our plan also potentially include power options so that people wouldn't have to run generators? It would be nice. if it could.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking this is,
Solar.
communities don't have you don't do this very often of redoing your public land, like actually redeveloping your public landing. I think this is definitely a once in a lifetime, once in a generation opportunity to do.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure whatever we want is built into this, even if it's just having conduit run,
Right, there are adjacent private property owners that would have expressed an interest in working with the town on doing things like undergrounding some of the utilities
Right.
that
Right.
aren't.
I'd like to actually get the power underground,
Yeah.
so we don't have stuff aerially up and down on the landing. It just makes sense to me to do this all holistically and address all these things and not try to piecemeal it after we do this.
Right. And then my other question is, this is to do with the landing. Would it include the boardwalk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Landing and boardwalk. I call the whole thing the public landing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I was just thinking about the money situation that you were saying, and the boardwalk and the public landing is,
I mean, there was no question we had to get the public landing, the boardwalk fixed
Oh,
for this
absolutely.
season, right? I mean,
I
and
am
it
not
cost what it
saying
cost.
anything
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
and that was done
Yeah.
very well.
And we may find that, I mean, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I think we need to let the engineers and the designers come up with a plan
Yeah.
that looks at all of these issues. We need to lay them out for them in the RFP.
Yeah.
So that they can address them. But I'm really hopeful and really excited about this project. Anything else?
Jeremy, do you think it's possible that, I mean, just guessing, this be in place, redevelop public landing and, vendor locations and all the utilities and all this sort of thing? We're looking summer of 2026. Is that realistic? Summer of
I
2025?
think we need to look at what the funding looks like. I mean, I want to get this done. It's going to be hard. We're going to be hard pressed, I think, to really know what the full costs are going to be. But I'd like to try to, in this coming budget cycle, at least start prepping, because I mean, it's not going to be 2024, clearly.
No.
My gut says it's probably more likely 2026.
Okay.
There's a
sounds
lot that,
realistic.
Very.
That's
yeah,
great.
it's
That would be
great.
great if we could have vendors and redevelopment and all. I mean, that's really aggressive. I think that's wonderful.
yeah, and I mean, certainly we're going to try to have a winter construction season
Sure.
too,
Yeah.
right? That's going to be critical to the success of this project too, so that we're not impacted down at the landing during prime summer season.
I think a big part of all of this is, this has always been something that is really prime for federal funding, like with the city of Rockland, when they redid their fish pier, they received, half of that or more than half of that. I think it was 80% of it was funded externally. And this has got all the same, I mean, not all of it. It's not just fishermen. That's a part of it. But, there is a lot of, sort of economic development aspects to this that makes it really strong for external funding. So I think that that's going to become a big part of all this is, us getting our act together with a match, because it's probably going to be 50%, our local contribution and a match from, state and federal, probably federal government. So it's really just getting ready for all of that as well.
And we can't apply for any of that if we don't have a project ready to go. I mean, I've looked into funding these things, and it's all you need. The project needs to be ready to go, shovel ready. And I hate the term, but it's the reality.
Sure. Sounds like we're well on our way though, with the potential to get some engineers involved.
Good job, Jeremy. Thank you for following up. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out with any questions, and I will get you something on the vendor locations and size sooner than later, because I want to include that in the RFP.
Could you share what you have about the Bangor plan, even if it isn't the one we want
Uh-huh.
or are going to go
Yeah, yeah,
with,
yeah.
just as
Yeah.
a thinking tape?
That's what we were
kind of
looking
thing?
for. We were looking for a handful of communities that do this and just try to look at those as models.
Right,
I hate recreating the wheel. It's
Right, well,
not
And you
efficient.
might not want to let, this be a limiting factor in moving
Right.
forward with that, because there
Right.
could be a lot of
oh,
benefits
no,
in,
absolutely.
if we come up with a policy for how you want to handle vendors on the landing, this is a good time to test it and see what works and what doesn't. And that could be good input into the work that the engineers are doing.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, I'd like the policy, if you approve a policy at some point, to like implement it next year,
right.
Yeah.
like for the vendors.
I just wanted it to look at because, I mean, the policies say with Bangor, I mean, that's been tried and true.
Yeah, 2010 is when they started it.
Right, so it's, I mean, and it's had to evolve with the use of their landing.
Yep.
I can only see that we may not have concerts down there, but I mean,
We may,
Hey, can we,
especially on that
can
green
we,
space.
could we have on the town website, have a new project for this and put all
Yeah.
the documents so the public has
Yeah.
easy access to
Yeah, I was
that?
just going to
The
say,
same
since the links didn't work in your packet, I
Right,
think it
let's
would be
put-
really helpful to have it all in one
Yep.
place so that you can all
Yep.
look at it, and members of the community who want to, who either, didn't participate or didn't remember because it was 10 years ago. We have all of that information, like
that's
the
good.
master plan, the wood report,
Mhm.
any other supplemental stuff that's been done. We'll put it in one place, easy to find.
Jeremy, regarding the getting vendors in place for next year, do we have the infrastructure down there, primarily utilities to support?
I gotta look, to be honest. I
I
don't
mean,
want to.
it's a great idea, but one nice thing about doing this with a redevelopment is we have the opportunity to build all those things up
For
as
sure.
part of the redevelopment. I'm not so sure that right now we can support 5 vendors.
No, agreed.
I don't mind trying, but they
Agreed.
might do what Chris
Yep.
has said is run 5 generators,
Yeah.
which it's tough.
No, that would definitely be tough, and it would
It's
change
changed
the lot and the
Yeah.
feeling in the public landing.
We
for
might
sure.
have some neighbors who don't love
Yep.
that. But something to at
Understandably.
least consider. Somebody can figure it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good, thank you.
That was good.
Item 8, B, the personnel policy. Audra, can you give us an intro on that?
Absolutely. So, and this is Chris asked me beforehand, sort of what caused us to review our entire personnel policy. So when I first got here, the town had been rewriting its personnel policy for 10 years. And one of the first things that I prioritized was getting that done. But a lot changed between sort of 2018 and now in terms of, legislation that's been passed, different, case law and interpretations of existing laws that, have changed how we need to do things. And also the labor market has drastically changed post-pandemic. So, there for municipal, the municipal job market, there's a lot of real, stern competition amongst all municipalities in Maine, particularly in certain professions. So I think it's caused a lot of us to relook at what we're doing and also look at, not just surrounding communities, but what's best practice across the entire state. And we realized that doing it internally was going to take a long time. There's a lot of research that we need to do. And so we reached out to Betsy, who's joined us on Zoom, because Betsy has a very extensive background in doing human resources consulting and working as an HR director for municipalities. So I'll let Betsy go into detail on her background, and she'll be the one who's sort of walking you through changes that have been proposed to the personnel policy.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. Really quickly, yes, as Audra said, I was actually the HR director for the town of Kittery and the Kittery School Department for several years. And as a result of sort of really loving the municipality world, I went out on my own about 8 years ago, and really my probably 99% of my clients are either municipalities or quasi-municipalities in Maine. Very different from the private sector in a lot of ways. And so as Audra said, we're sort of in this world right now where a lot of things have changed. We've had an earned paid leave law that was effective on January of 2020. We're now going to have another law coming up in 2026 for the paid family medical leave. So just going through this process and looking what you currently had and what was existing, we did sort of a whole reformat. What I'd like to, I don't know if I have sharing capability. Do I? Yes, let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, great, okay. So it wasn't as easy as sort of doing a track change from your original document because we've reformatted it all. So the best way that I could really share this with the group is to indicate sort of in the blue highlight is new language and new sections. The green highlights are your original language that was in the current manual that we did not change. And then the non-highlight is really the subject matter was there. It's just either updated or tweaked a little bit. So what I thought I would do this evening, if this works for you folks, is just really go through the high-level summary of changes that were made. And then I did, Sophie, thank you for your, I have some bullets that you provided to me that I had a chance to look through briefly before tonight's meeting that maybe we can cover as well, if that works.
Sure.
Okay, great. So really, as I said, we reformatted, added additional information. One of the things that, just is important is to make sure we have a welcome page, that there's a value, mission statement, and core values, talking about the culture of excellence, accountability, and communication, the diversity and inclusion connection, environment, safety, and all of that sort of right up front to make sure that people understand who they are coming to work for and to work with. So that was a new section, along with a purpose and effect, talking through why there are personnel policies and rules and what is the purpose there, and what your goals of personnel management is in this section as well. And then we moved these other sections are your current language that we did not make any changes to. And if I'm going too fast, let me know, but I'm gonna go through this, and then we can go back and answer any questions, however you wanna handle it. So section 2, application and hiring, again, we kept the language. We did add gender expression as the law has, added another sort of protected class here, which we added into this section. The other new section that we added was the disability accommodation, and you'll notice that the new law, the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, is a part of this. We are required to accommodate, pregnant folks, as well as other people with disabilities. So that's what this language encompasses. It also talks about what the process is. It is an interactive process when you are talking about making an accommodation for somebody with a disability. So we've added in that interactive process here as well. So then we get into eligibility, announcement of vacancies, how that works. This is all your current language. I will say, I think your last update was May of 2022, so a lot of your language was current, which was great. Application of employment, we have an employment of relatives or a nepotism clause, if you will. That's all your current language as well. There is a 6-month probationary period, and Sophie, just to comment on your question, that is typical in a municipal government. It's either 6 months, it cannot be longer than 6 months unless it's the police departments who we can have a year probationary period after they've completed the Criminal Justice Academy. So typical is 6 months. What I've added in here, and I think it goes along with sort of your discussion or your thought process on onboarding. I am a huge proponent of appropriately onboarding employees. And part of that is because we're a public sector, we're not a private sector, so we're not an at-will employer. And so the first 6 months are considered at-will, meaning we don't need to go through the just cause and the process if we were to separate with an employee. However, we've learned that if we don't have a regular communication with the employee during that 6-month period, it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the town to try to make sure that we provide all the resources and feedback necessary. So I developed a form that I've shared with Audra recently where it provides that 2-month and that 4-month check-in so that we have those subject matters hit. The next piece is the lateral transfer piece, and that all that means is, again, we're talking about retention and recruitment. It's tough. We're not really, as a municipal government in the state of Maine, none of us are really doing a great job of sort of growing our own, if you will. We're working on it, trying to excite folks into these occupations, but right now it's pretty competitive, sort of regionally with each other. And so we wanted to make sure there's a mechanism if we do have somebody who has, experience from another municipality or like-minded position, that we can bring them in at a wage and a vacation rate that would be competitive. We definitely know with sort of the 5 generations of the workplace, the millennial generation in particular, and the other younger ones really value the time off, oftentimes more than a higher hourly wage. So we wanted to make sure that was in there. Your employment examinations and your personnel file language is the same. The employee classification, what I always like to add in these handbooks is really the Fair Labor Standards Act job classification definitions so that people understand. Oftentimes people don't understand that hourly means non-exempt and et cetera. So we include that here in this section. The town job classifications is primarily your language here. I know that there was a question, and we can probably talk about that maybe after we go through this, about right now we have regular full-time employees as designated as 30 hours or more, or no less than 30 hours. Employers are, and municipalities are allowed to sort of determine what hours would be deemed full-time in terms of benefits and all of that. So so that's where that language comes from. You'll notice in here too, Attorney Ann Freeman, who I work with quite a bit with Bernstein Schur, who's a labor attorney in Portland. She typically reviews the personnel manuals that I do for each client, and so she has some notes here that we will certainly make those changes. Seasonal employees actually that's not necessarily the case. If anybody works over 40 hours, we are required to pay them overtime unless they are exempted through the unemployment office. So it's not entirely sort of a blanket statement, which we will make a change here for that. Another sort of new section is just a change in position, either an advancement or a demotion. Again, talking about what will happen if there is a change. If somebody does move into another position, there will be another 6-month probationary period, particularly if it's a position that's not, it's in a whole different department and it's a new position. So we wanted to just make sure that was in there. We also have a section on end of employment, how to handle voluntary resignations, retirement initiated by the employee, and also involuntary and layoff. And then we talk about the final paycheck. The newest law in Maine is that we are required to pay out all unused vacation time at the time that somebody leaves. Oftentimes municipal governments will put in there, if somebody leaves in good standing, they'll get paid out the rest of their vacation time. We now are required to pay out vacation time regardless. We have a new section here, really one of the most important tools really an employer can have, an employee can have, are the other job descriptions. So it's critical that they are updated and that this is what is contained in a typical job description. And again, these are reviewed on a periodic basis throughout the organization. Your standard work week is that is your current language. We did add a break section in here. I know that by the state law we are required to provide a 30-minute break for somebody working over 6 hours. They certainly can waive their lunch break, but if they so waive it, it needs to be in writing. That's written in here, and then just basically talking about coffee breaks or other breaks, and that's really per department and how they sort of run their departments. The other two caveats here that are important is that unused break leave is not to be accumulated time to be used at the beginning or end of a day. If there's a 15-minute paid break that, if they don't use it, then they just don't have it. We added the workplace lactation policy in here, again, talking about the Federal Pump Act, nursing mothers in the workplace. Maine already had a law in place. And so really the difference between the Pump Act that just came out in January of this year is really to expand upon, those women that weren't necessarily receiving sort of that benefit if they were a salary exempt employee. But most everything here that is in this policy was already a law in the state of Maine. Your timekeeping is your current language. We just added a paycheck in here that we want to make sure that if it wasn't mandatory, that we want to ensure that direct deposit is mandatory for all the workforce. That's in here. And then we get to, again, your current language on overtime and comp time. And there is a little bit of, I think, some confusion with the attorney had some confusion regarding this language, which we'll clean up. And the fire department is, this is in your previous policy in terms of sick hours. And she just had a question about whether or not it was union. Again, we wanted to make sure, so comp time, no employee would be able to accumulate more than 40 hours of comp time. Public sector is the only, really the only entity that allows for comp time, and that's just for the non-exempt employees, the hourly employees, where instead of getting paid overtime, they can save that time at a time and a half rate. And there are parameters set in place here for that. This Public Works Department and your Parks and Rec Department employees, this is already current language, your firefighters, current language, and your attendance policy, absences, etc. These have not been changed. Then we get into standards of conduct. Again, it was a little bit displaced in some part of the original personnel policy. So we really talked about what the rules of conduct are, and these are some aspects of conduct that are expected in the workplace, and they're certainly not all inclusive. You had a conflict of interest, gifts and gratuity section. Section on outside employment, political activity. This is all your current language. We added the confidentiality policy in here to ensure that, other records or information considered being confidential and that are not subject to the Freedom of Access Act. This section describes that. So we had your section on off-duty conduct, personal business while at work, current. We did add a non-bullying policy, really important policy to put in here. Bullying at this point in time in our world is not illegal. It certainly can lead toward, harassment, illegal harassment. But more importantly, it's really good information to go over the employees to this is where we get a lot of sort of challenges in the workplace with this type of behavior. So we have a separate policy for that. And we also felt it was really important to say what bullying is not. So if your supervisor is correcting you or behavior, that's not considered bullying. So that's also in here, as well as a complaint process, similar to what you would have in your discrimination and harassment policy. This again is your policy. The reason it's in white is we just made sure that we have it sort of more formatted and all of the right language is in there appropriately. You have a technology use and social media policy that's in an appendix that we'll get to in a minute. The disciplinary action and grievance procedure, this has been updated and really cleaned up in terms of it's not as detailed as your current policy has. One of the concerns that I have and that the attorney has as well is having a personnel appeals committee or a committee that is made up of of people within the community, that creates, you know, a potential problem for the town. And in particular, you know, there's also a department head that's, I believe that's on your Personnel Appeals Committee, that we've removed that from this section. Now, understanding that it's probably most likely in your charter, and so if there needs to be a charter change as a result of that, that would be a recommendation. So this is just a new section on the licensing, training, education, just making sure that if employees are required to have a professional license or certification, that they provide it to in the town manager's office, and that employees maintain those as well. This is your training section. Educational benefits, it was really important. This is another benefit that a lot of people really value. And so what we have here is a sort of a tuition reimbursement type thing if people want to further their careers or further their education. But there's also a section here that if the employee leaves the organization within 2 years, they will be required to pay 100% of it back. That's new language. As far as the holiday section, we have added Juneteenth here as a holiday. And then we just wanted to clarify language for part-time employees. They will be paid for holidays when they fall on their regularly scheduled workday. So we have that language in there. Your vacation section and your sick section, the beginning of it anyway, is your current language. Just really wanted to make sure we added in here use and, you know, when somebody should be taking sick time. We also talk about the main family sick leave, which is required of us to allow employees to use up to 40 hours of their sick leave to care for a family member. That's outside of that's if somebody has a sick child 1 week, et cetera, they can use up to 40 hours of sick. We have a mechanism in here that if somebody does exceeds, you know, if they exceed 3 days, that we may request a healthcare provider note. And this will also trigger us into consideration of a family medical leave situation. We added a fitness for duty requirement to make sure that people are physically and mentally fit to perform their job safely and efficiently at all times. And this is another policy that's really important to make sure that we have in here. And also the suspected sick time abuse, if there is that suspicion of sick time abuse, that, you know, the department head will be speaking to them about that and having a conversation if they are concerned about that. Your payment upon separation is currently what it is. Emergency closures, bereavement leave, military leave, jury duty, that's all your current language. We did add parental leave in here. I believe you folks have already pre-approved this policy. So that's embedded in here. And we've also sort of expounded a little bit more on the paid, the family medical leave. This is the language right here where the attorney is recommending that we're putting into the handbooks, even though the paid family medical leave benefit law is not going to come into play. It's not going to be effective until 2026. I believe in 2025 is when the percentages are going to come into play in terms of how that's going to be paid for. So that's brand new. Your workers' comp, health insurance, retirement, that's all your current language. I did add, you've always had an employee assistance program. Just important to call that out here in your handbook. And then any other benefits. Your compensation plan, again, that's your current language. Performance evaluations. This is a little bit of a hybrid situation. This again talks about the new employee shall be evaluated at least at the 2-month and 4-month anniversary of employment. This is all of your current language. We didn't do anything to the step and grade plan. I don't know where this is the change, Audra, but we can, I'll let you talk about that in a minute. Your safety, personal injury reporting and compliance with safety, workplace violence, substance abuse, no smoking. This is all your language we didn't change. We did get more involved in the workers' comp process here in terms of the main workers' comp law, and that employees will be referred to the town's designated healthcare provider, process of how to file a first report of injury, and really important, if eligible, workers' comp absences will run concurrently with family medical leave. Talks about benefit premiums, accruals, waiting period, and if they want to supplement their workers' comp check, they certainly can. We can't require them to do so. It also talks about how Maine State retirement is affected. So this is a pretty robust policy that is pretty clear when somebody has a workers' comp injury. This willful injury piece is yours. And then we get into your appendixes. So, we did, one of the things that we changed that I guess I didn't mention before is a lot of folks were sort of holding off, letting folks use vacation time in their first 6 months of probationary period, and then the earned paid leave law changed that and said, we have to let them use it, within 120 days of employment, which is 3 months. Most municipalities are waiving that and allowing people to utilize their sick and their vacation time when it starts to accrue. I think what we've changed here is rather than sort of dumping vacation time, into somebody's bucket, they're accruing it on a regular basis now instead of it being dumped into their bucket. So if they used it and they left before they earned it, we wouldn't need to deal with that whole situation. Your bonus vacation, we didn't touch. This is just the full-time firefighters, and the regular part-time is, again, we started, we did, instead of, let's see, so we started with from date of hire, beginning accruing 2 weeks in each sort of classification of employees. This is the section that just really talks about the earned paid leave law, that the current vacation policy does meet the compliance with the earned paid leave law for the full-time regular employees. And then you have a separate earned paid leave policy in the appendix that will apply to all of your non-regular employees or seasonal employees. This insurance and retirement benefit, we did nothing to. That's your current language. Again, we have the family and medical leave. Not sure why I think, I'll just double check on that. I think we might, it should be embedded in we just didn't remove it from the appendix, which I will do. So there's Maine family. So the reason why we have both the federal and Maine in there is that there are, the laws are slightly different, and whichever works to the advantage of the employee, that's the one that we use. And then your drug and alcohol testing policy, we did not touch. That's rather long, very well done. Sorry if I'm making people dizzy. So you had a technology use and social media policy to some extent. This is just more updated. And again, we tried to, keep it somewhat generic and in the ever-changing times of technology. This is also a correction that the attorney made regarding a user's personal email. So the employer doesn't have unfettered access to someone's private email account just because they pull it up on the town system. So we want to make that clear. So this is the social media policy, and this is your reference to the Earned Paid Leave Act that effective January 1, 2021. And we didn't touch it. This is something that you folks came up with in quite detail and did a good job, so we didn't touch that. Why that's highlighted. Okay. Employee expenses, that's again your policy. Your storm closing policy, we didn't touch. We did add a vehicle use policy in here, and just making sure that people are reporting if they have violations, making sure that we are running motor vehicle checks every year. That should be an annual occurrence. What is authorized use of a town vehicle versus not, driver safety rules if you're driving a town vehicle, some definitions here. And then we get to your pay implementation policy, where I think this was the change, correct, Audra?
Yes.
Okay. So it sort of removed the anniversary date, and it's really based on the current step and grade pay plan that you have in practice. These are all your, and that's it. That's it in a nutshell. So I'm sure that you'll probably have more questions. This is an overview. Not sure if you folks would be open to sort of going through it in more detail. If you would like to, probably more of a workshop type session, but I know it's a lot of information to throw at you tonight, but just wanted to go through, sort of the rationale and why we've, updated this, and really making sure, that we are, valuing our employees, making sure we're following all the current laws. But one thing that hasn't been done yet, we're waiting for this to be approved, is that we are going to have a separate seasonal employee handbook, so that because you have such a big sort of seasonal, not normal to the coast where it's a lot of lifeguards and things like that, but with your snowball, we thought it would make more sense for them to have their own handbook. A lot of the policies in here wouldn't apply to them, and rather handing somebody such a large employee handbook, we can be, have it very specific to those folks. So we'll be working on, that'll be a much smaller, obviously a handbook, but we'll take, some of the policies from here.
Does anybody have any questions for Betsy or any ideas on how you'd like to go about moving this forward?
I have a question on page 139 of the packet, which is page 40 of the personnel policy. So regular part-time employees, this is an addition now that we're going vacation time for part-time employees. What's been our policy in the past, and is this typical now to give vacation to part-time employees?
Yeah, so I need to double check. I don't believe you did previously. Regular part-time employees, so these are the folks that regularly work, year-round. They're not your temporary. We're definitely adding those vacation benefits to those folks.
But that's less than 30 hours a week, part-time, is that right?
Yep,
Is this typical standard practice in municipal government now?
it is.
Audra, are we struggling to find regular part-time employees? Is this?
We don't have a lot of regular part-time employees. We only have a handful of them.
What job
Yeah.
descriptions are regular part-time employees for the town?
So the I forget what what Dagny's job is called, but Dagny's in promotions and box office at the Opera House. That's a part-time position. The administrative assistant for codes, planning and development, that's a 30-hour position currently. However, that role is full-time. Like it's designed to be a full-time role. So really, I mean, there's very few part-time people. The majority of part-time people we have are all seasonal part-time. And I'm not sure if this is correct, Betsy. The vacation time for part-time people, that has to do with the earned pay leave law, right? Is that?
That's correct.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that's the only reason why this is
We have
becoming
to have it.
common practice. Yeah.
This is state law for municipal employees, the earned paid leave.
Yes, the earned paid leave law became into effect 1/1 for all employees that fall within certain categories. I think the intent, I mean, I didn't create the law, but I think the intent of the law was for private sectors, you know, who typically didn't offer paid leave. But unfortunately, it now affects the municipality world. And so, you know, there's, between election workers, there's a lot of sort of variance to who will be eligible for earned paid leave and who isn't. So we've had to adjust based upon that law.
Is this something that we have to track internally, or do we have software that tracks this?
We track it, but through our payroll software.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
So I've had a couple conversations after we passed the bonus year vacation. And Betsy, I don't see any, let's say on page, I don't know what page of the,
Is that on the appendix?
it's on, page 40 on the personnel policy. So it's, I'm looking at 138 in the packet. So at the very end of the bonus, you didn't have any rewording for that last paragraph. You think that's very clear that it's intended for only the anniversary year? The bonus, yeah. Okay, I didn't know if I was clear in saying that.
Yeah, we didn't touch that. This is
Okay.
something that I've not seen before. So this is
Yeah.
something that's your current practice, that we didn't change. So, I guess I would ask Audra, so any vacation leave accrual amounts more than a half of the unused leave from one anniversary date to the following shall be forfeited. So it's it's very specific to their anniversary date. Is that the question, whether or not that's clear?
If that's clear, if you feel that's clear enough. You can think on it. I just.
Yeah, let me think, but honestly, I didn't pay a lot of attention to it because it was a current practice that, you know, we really don't want to come in here and try to take away anything from anybody.
No, absolutely not.
So let me review that just to make sure that it makes sense to me and as well,
Yeah.
so.
I don't want to get rid of it either. I just have had a few conversations with
Yeah.
people that they're like, well, I think it means that. So I wasn't
okay.
sure if there was a better way to make it more clear.
Yeah, the other thing I failed to mention at the beginning too is when I do these things, and Audra and I were definitely on the same page with this, is, you know, rather than have somebody come in and just a handful of people sort of make all these changes and then it goes before the
Right.
board and you approve it, we we provided this to your department heads ahead of time to make sure they reviewed it. Because, many people are better than one or two. And they had some clarifications they asked of us, which was great.
Yeah.
And also the employees have had an opportunity to look at it too, just to make sure, they're understanding the changes or the potential changes too, which is always a good process.
Yeah.
So I guess, this is a discussion item because it was the first time it came in front of you. And, we knew it's a lot to take in because it was a pretty comprehensive rewrite. So I guess in moving this forward, what's going to make everybody most comfortable? Do you think there's enough, additional discussion and sort of detail that you would like to have a session with Betsy and we could schedule a workshop? Or do you think it's something that, we could put on as an action item at the next meeting and maybe we could ask Betsy to come again and be available in case anything comes up between now and then? I'm just sort of putting it out to all of you.
I'm actually, we haven't really subtracted a lot. We've added a lot. It certainly adds a lot of clarification and adds new categories that weren't necessary probably in the past. I've actually been working with a detailed document like this on my personal profession. And this is actually, in my opinion, this is really well written and well thought out. It's just a little bit ironic that I've been dealing with this exact same thing. So
That's good.
what I see here is, I think is well done.
So I agree. I think it was really good. And I reviewed those for a living, but not in this country. I think it was really well thought out. I have a few questions, and Betsy, maybe what you could do is take the bullet points I sent. I don't want to, I don't want to overtake the conversation, and answer them, and we could share that with the board, so they see the questions I ask. Mostly that there's a style issue that really bugged me, but I'm sure you can change that because that really irked me. But overall, I thought it was really well thought out. I'm like, I want to come and work for Camden, man. It's just, this is really good, and it is, our town employees are awesome. They do a great job. We saw that tonight, so I have no problems with that. And I think it's very well thought out. It's clear. I would love to make sure that we do some level of training once the new policy is adopted, so everybody knows about those things and know how they works and can ask questions. But overall, for me, if I can have answers to those questions and share to the board, I'll be happy.
Out of all
Those were some great suggestions, and I didn't go through all of them, Sophie, but I certainly will. And if you share your email with your board.
Yeah, and I have another four that I'm going to add to that, so I'm going to email it again tonight. So
Great.
Was one of those items your mention on page 13 on the job description piece? It says job descriptions will be reviewed periodically. Is there a reason why we don't quantify what that period is?
So again,
At least every 2 years, every 3 years?
Well, we've had discussions about that in the past. So up until probably 15 years ago, most municipalities didn't even have an HR department, didn't have HR. That was a sort of something that they did. And a lot of those folks were operating off job descriptions from the 1980s. And so really, it's really dependent upon sort of the organization. I mean, we could say every 3 years, but if something were to change, what I like to do is leave it a little bit open. But certainly I'm not opposed to having a date. It's just, it gives you that sort of one more thing where you have to do something, every 3 years when maybe it's not needed, or maybe you needed to do it, within 2 years because a job changed. And so we always want to look at if duties are changed or anything, but I'm open to that.
So does that language in there speak to if duties change?
Let me see. I'm sorry.
Bottom of page 13,
Gotcha.
job descriptions.
Yeah.
Audra, do we have a human resources officer?
We've dedicated the deputy finance director because she handles, payroll and benefits as, our HR officer.
If we were to set this on a periodic basis, do you think that's reasonable to ask her to add that to her job description, that every 2 years, 3 years or whatnot?
I don't think there's a lot of benefit in specifying a time period because, it really, whenever there's turnover, we look at job descriptions and update them. And we went through a project of revising all the job descriptions just recently, and a lot of that, it's not just the HR office, it's also all of the departments as well, because, they're the ones who kind of craft what the jobs are that they need for the department. So,
And also, if we have a regular performance review system, that's also a time where you can update them because people take on new responsibilities or projects. Or so it's I would prefer, in the organizations I've worked at, I always prefer updating job descriptions linked to the performance evaluation because it sticks more to the reality of their jobs than having a every 3 year, because it might not be.
yeah.
Yeah,
Sure,
I
but-
agree with you. That's a good point. Would it be better, to Chris's point, to make it something that's a little more concrete? You're going to do employee reviews in May, I think it said in here. Would it be good for you to just make either a stamp on the existing one or make an update in May when you do the employee review?
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly put, would we kind of go back and redraft some of this? We could put sort of circumstances when we would update, job descriptions, just
I'll add
to
a
give
bullet
some
point.
examples and.
I agree. That is the time. It's a great time to discuss with the employee what they're doing, what could be improved, and then maybe even add some of that to the job description.
Yeah, the other thing that I would like to say about so the job descriptions are so critical for a lot of different things now, more so than ever. We're even adding in job descriptions under the essential functions of the job that you must get along with others in a professional manner. Like, there's a lot of behavioral expectations now that are actually being put into the job descriptions under the essential functions of the job. So I think, looking those initially and getting those to where they need to be, and then, a periodic review when they're sitting down with their supervisor, I think is great. The other thing that I really recommend is that if we're looking at sort of a job description, I always like the employees to have maybe a week and jot down sort of what they do on a regular basis, because oftentimes they've taken on other responsibilities that their supervisor may not even know. And when we have a correct job description and an accurate one, that's when we can really make those sort of comparisons regionally with what other municipalities are paying for these positions, because it's so different dependent upon the job title. So these job descriptions are really critical. So I think, maybe beefing that up a little bit in terms of sort of when at least we review it, once they're all, and they all should be formatted similarly so that, you have a regular format that you can go to.
You should have like a core job description, like core values and missions, and must work well with other and things like that, and then you can go directly to the. And so that portion of the core value, if you will, that can be revised every 2 years, for instance. Make sure it keeps current, and then what's allocated to everybody, each one of us job, then at the performance review you can update it. I think it could be a good system like that.
I think so. I think that's a good idea.
So, yeah. So there's only,
And then-
well, you go, Betsy.
No, I just said I made a note,
Oh.
sorry.
So the only two things that I kind of wanted to review at the next meeting is to make sure the appeals committee, that wording that was removed, if that is a charter, that needs to be looked at.
So I can tell you off the top of my head, that's not a charter thing.
Okay, because I know we amended the personnel
Yeah.
board, and I thought we had something.
Yeah,
in-
I think because you were on the personnel committee
Yeah.
at the time, that
I
the
just can't remember.
grievance stuff was put in.
Right.
So that's not in the charter, but having a personnel, so when the charter was amended by the Charter Commission, we had like a personnel board and it was elected, and they were given all kinds of responsibilities that really spoke more to, like Betsy was saying, the days when most towns didn't have HR department or a lot of like formalized HR. And so that was set up in the charter as the group that came up with the very first personnel policy. And it was kind of like, after that happened, they almost didn't really have a purpose. And then all of the, sort of dynamics that Betsy's talking about with having a, external group of citizens who don't manage people, having some responsibility over setting policy and making decisions about employment and that sort of thing. So they amended it so it was a personnel advisory committee.
Right.
After talking with Betsy, that's still a pretty awkward, it's all optional. You can appoint them or not, but it's just kind of like awkward because like Betsy's saying that's sort of from a bygone era. And when we're reviewing, we talked about with Bill, some of the charter amendments to clarify, and a lot of it is HR responsibilities. This is sort of another thing that we talked about with Betsy about reviewing when we look at, some of the amendments that we need to make to the charter, is just getting rid of that personnel committee. But that's kind of an aside to what you asked, Stephanie.
But it needs
A
to be
little bit.
processed, just correct, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just make sure all of it is. And then, hold on just a second. Oh, I was very interested in the part where you said that the select board can determine what full-time means. I would like for the what full-time, I wasn't quite sure what you meant, and I didn't write down what page that was on. But
Sure.
just at the
It's-
next meeting, we don't need to go if you don't want to, but it would just be
It
nice.
just means the Department of Labor doesn't care how an employer designates whether somebody's full-time or not. So some places will have 35 hours a week as full-time and they
Okay.
receive benefits. Some people will say 40 hours, some is 37 and a half. So what I meant by that was that's a decision that you as an organization can make.
Okay. Those are really all my notes. I thought this was really great and it cleaned up a lot of the issues that, man, when we had the personnel board, it was just so much to make any little change. It had to go back and forth. So at some point you were like, it's fine. It's gonna work. So I'm really, when I saw some of those things cleaned up, I was like, oh, thank goodness. So.
Well, it's also good to make sure that the current laws and all the changes that have occurred are part of that. And that's the right intent.
Yeah. Thank you, Betsy.
Great. So it sounds like action item next meeting. And I'll ask Betsy if she'd be able to come back and, just if any more questions have been, anything comes up as you're reviewing it between now and then. And if anybody else has additional questions that you would like to send me, what I'll do is I'll compile them and we'll send around the answers to all of you so that you have it.
That'd be
sort of as
great.
it's
Like
happening.
all of us will have like all of Sophie's. And
Right.
then the okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
if
that'd be great.
Anybody
Perfect.
else has anything else that comes up, I'll do
Yeah.
the same thing so that all of you can see what everybody else has asked and what the answers are.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Betsy.
Betsy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Yep, good night.
Good night.
Moving on, item 9 on tonight's agenda is agenda items for upcoming meetings. I took notes at the
At the workshop?
select board workshop recent, and so I have all of the things that I know that you mentioned, but would anybody I can review those if you'd like, or we can just add now, or.
Well, it depends. What are you looking for? Are you looking for long items, short items, medium?
Sure, yeah, you know what, these were,
Because I think some
these
of
were your
them.
long-term goals.
Right.
Yes.
So these are, so there's some in between things we can do between now and the end of the year, whatever. So I think maybe we should have like timeline.
Yeah, so anybody have suggestions for short-term select board items? Don't feel like you have to. I know Audra can keep us busy on her own.
So we do have something, actually. I'm sad that Jeremy didn't bring it up. The peer moratorium needs to come back because we have added so many structures. We need to rediscuss it. And this might need to go to the Harbor Committee first to get their recommendations. Because we've added, in the current version of the moratorium, there's different floats and breakwaters and things like that that were not addressed by the Harbor Committee in the first work we've done with them. We were only looking at piers and attached floats. So that's something we need to address because there's a time constraint to it. But Jeremy's on top of it because he's talked to me and to Josh and shared with us the information. So it's probably something we're going to look at the next Harbor Committee, but we should keep tabs on it.
Sophie, thank you. So the extra structures, you were speaking quickly, floats, breakwaters, anything else that we should all
Yeah,
be?
there's like 4 or 5 of them, and I don't know them from the
Okay.
top of my head, but
That's a-
it's just additional
Okay,
structures
get
that
us
need to be
moving in the right
regulated.
direction. Okay.
That's the one that comes to mind immediately.
Well, we still do have, correct, the EMS workshop on October 10. That's
Mhm.
certainly an upcoming agenda item. And where were we on the paid parking update? Was that something that was coming up as an agenda item, or is it something else?
So yes, after the group meets
Yeah.
and we get the recommendations.
Okay.
So that'll probably be
In
early
November.
November. Yeah.
Because the meeting is not going to be before the end of October.
Oh,
Right.
Right. Okay.
Anything else? Oh, great. Thank you. everyone.
Think of anything. I know I have a couple things, but I'll email you.
Absolutely. Feel free to email as well. And,
Dark City.
Dark sky.
Dark Sky City.
Dark sky. Dark city. I would.
So just to give you like a preview of things that are going to need to come up pretty soon.
Okay.
A fee order. So there's quite a few departments that, we've got the yearly fees that you're all familiar with, but we've got some new ones, particularly, when contractors are connecting into, or they're just like digging in the right of way, whatever the case is. The right of way licenses that you've all seen, those take a tremendous amount of time and resources to prepare, and we don't charge anything for them. So those are things, codes and planning, they need to update their fees. But it'll be all, Snow Bowl, Opera House. It's just, they're not going to change anything, but still the whole order will come in front of you. But the ones that really need to be focused on will be in the codes planning and development office as well as public works.
The Harbor Committee is going to review the fees as well.
Yes. Yes, that's another one that'll probably change. Usually do.
I haven't updated them in a while, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gave you guys a list that was on that list of things to look at, right? For the Harbor Committee
The
a
fees?
few meetings ago.
The Harbor Committee reviews the fees every year,
Okay.
so it'll come up.
Oh, right. You mean there were specific ones that you wanted them to look at a little bit?
But the license,
closer.
the licensing and the transfer, they're working on that. They will.
Right.
That's a different one. It's not with the fees. It's the transfer, the license transfer and the license agreements and the process and changes to the ordinances.
Okay, excellent.
And we should have recommendations, sorry, we should have recommendations on it before the end of the year.
Great.
Because the Harbor Committee has made progress.
Sounds good. So fees are on the agenda soon. I mean, we can do alibis too. If the Harbor Committee takes longer, we can do fees. We can update their fees at a later date. Okay.
The other thing we need, Audra, is the applications for committees.
Yes.
And I think the idea is to have
Does everybody want to revamp that form? Is that what you're looking for?
revamping the form and having a process where we publicize the town, say, this is the window where you can apply to any committee you want. And then we update, the alternates or the missing spots, but we have a process, like so trying to come up with a process where it's known to the public that there's a certain window open for them to apply online, whatever we can do to make it, seamless and not have paper flying around. And then make sure that all the committees are appropriately staffed. And then if somebody drops from a committee outside of the window, that we have slates of alternates or people who can step up. So we can have a little bit rationalization of this process, because I think everybody would benefit from this, more clarity and transparency and predictability, hopefully.
Sounds good. I like it.
Great.
Item 10 on our agenda is adjournment. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? 4-0. Thank you, everyone.